We got the ASUS ROG Gaming phone here, and we're going to tear it down. First thing first, remove the SIM tray on the side of the phone. Next, remove the rubber cover covering the ports over here on the side. Next thing you want to do, heat the back of the phone with either a hairdryer or a heat gun, whichever you have or prefer. It has some strong adhesive going throughout the sides of the phone, so you're gonna have to work your way with the pry tool afterwards. I prefer a guitar pick or something plastic so you don't damage the frame of the phone. But if you do need to, you can use something thin like a razor just to get an edge on the corner or somewhere through the sides of the phone to get your pry tool inside. And then once you get it in, just work your way around. It's gonna be a little tough on this one. Like I said, the adhesive is pretty strong. Alright, next, once you work your way throughout the sides of the phone and you loosen the adhesive, you're going to pry the back off from bottom upwards. There's a cable underneath here for the fingerprint scanner. You don't want to rip that. So, right here you have a rubber covering the connector. Take that rubber out and then disconnect the cable that's attached to the board. Once you got that cable disconnected, put your back aside. So now you have 11 Phillips screws you're gonna have to remove throughout the phone. Go ahead and remove those. Alright, once you removed all your screws, next thing you want to do, you want to pry off this plastic piece over here that says ROG Aerodynamic System. It has adhesive underneath it, so you're going to have to pry it off. Alright, once you remove that, you have two more Phillips screws over here you need to remove. Go ahead and remove those two Phillips screws. Alright, once you got those two screws removed, you're going to need to pry off this plastic frame. So this is inside the mid frame of the phone. It has some adhesive all the way around as well, so you're going to have to pry this one up as well. Use your pry tool to get in some side and just work your way around. Alright, once you got that loosened up, next thing you want to do, get underneath this white panel over here which lights up the logo for the ROG sign on the back. Get underneath it, lift it up, away from the battery. And then just lift it up. Put that aside. Next thing, there's a cable over here that goes for the LED lights that light that up. You're gonna have to lift that off, up and away from the frame that it's sitting on. I'll lift up the plastic cover. And it's pretty heavy considering the copper heat pipe it has over here. So if you take a closer look at the back, or the inside and behind the copper, you can see there's a lot of copper throughout the whole plastic piece over here. There's copper here, here, here. There's some around the screw holes over here and here. There's some here. There's also some over here. So basically it goes throughout the frame for the most part and keeps the phone cool. And if you put it next to the phone over here, the main parts I would think would be this, and this, which would be going over here, here, and here. Now at this point you're going to go ahead and disconnect the battery cable, which is located over here. Next, go ahead and disconnect all the rest of the cables throughout the phone. Two cables down here you have to disconnect. There's one more over here next to the battery. Pop that off. And then there's a protective tape over one of the connectors over here, which leads for the LED lights that light up the logo. Remove that tape and lift up the lock switch. And you'll be able to pull out the LED lights right there. And next you got another cable over here. And disconnect that. Flip the phone around. Got another cable right here. Go ahead and disconnect that cable. We got one more right here. And then next you got one over here on top for the front facing camera. And then you have a cable over here for your main cameras. Disconnect that one. Now you have 4 more Phillips screws you need to remove. You got one over here. You got one here. You have one on top over here. And you have one more over here. So go ahead and remove those screws. Alright, next you're going to want to lift up the sticker over here, the black one. I don't know if it's like a thermal shield or what it is, but go ahead and pry it off. Alright, now you can lift up the main board. Make sure none of the cables get in the way. You've got this blue cable over here, disconnect this one as well. You got a protective tape over here as well, Peel that off. This is attached to your charger port, or goes over the charger port, so. Alright, so at this point, let me move this over so you guys can see. Alright, so here's your main board. You got some thermal paste over here, I believe, which would be over your processor. Here's the extra connectors on the side, which you can use for the accessories or the extra heating fan it comes with. Not the cooling fan, I'm sorry. And you got your SIM reader over here. Let's put that aside. Alright, so there's also another copper piece over here that goes on the mid-frame of the phone. And you have your vibrating motor over here, you have your speaker down here, your charger port over here, your cameras are over here, your top of your speakers over here, and your front-facing cameras over here. And also for the battery, you have two pull tabs over here. So if you wanted to power off the battery, you'd be pulling off those two pull tabs and lifting up the battery. So in order to remove your camera, you have 3 more Phillips screws. Go ahead and remove those screws. There's your cameras, put that aside. Alright, now the bottom speaker assembly. You have this cable over here which makes contact with the board. That's on a plastic piece, just go underneath it, lift it up. Speaker comes off. Next you got another Phillips screw over here for your charger port. Go ahead and remove that screw. Once you got that removed, just pull out your charger port right here. Put that aside. Then you have access to the cable over here that goes for your headphone jack. Put that aside. So now you're pretty much left with the mid frame, your battery, your vibrator motor, your front-facing camera. You have your speaker over here on the top, your earpiece speaker, and you have a cable over here for your screen. Now if you wanted to remove your screen, you'd have to basically heat up the front of the phone and you'd have to pry the screen off the mid frame. And also your power button over here and your volume keys, the cable runs underneath the battery over here, which connects to the board over here. So you'd have to remove the battery to get access to removing that or replacing that. And your pull tabs for the battery are here. Here's one of them, and the second one's over here. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and reassemble the phone. We're going to put our headphone jack in first. Next we're going to put our charger port in. Slide it back in place. Next go ahead and screw it back in. Alright, next go ahead and put your speaker back in. Just gonna make sure your battery tabs don't get stuck underneath it. Alright, next go ahead and put your cameras back in. And then screw them back in. Alright, next we're going to put the main board back in. Just make sure none of the cables get stuck underneath it. Alright, next go ahead and put the screws back in for your main board. Alright, once you got all your screws for the main board back in, go ahead and connect all the cables. Alright, next go ahead and put this tape back over. Alright, next put your LED lights for the logo back in. Make sure your lock is unlocked first, which is lifted up position. Once your cable's back in, push the lock down to lock it in place. Next, put the protective tape back over. Alright, now at this point, go ahead and put your battery cable back on. Reconnect it. Alright, next get your back plastic cover with the copper heat pipe that's on it. Put it back in place, make sure your LED light cable doesn't get stuck underneath it. Just go around, pop back in place. Alright, next, put your LED light cable back onto that plastic piece, push it down. Then you're gonna put the light panel back over. Alright, now go ahead and put all the screws back in. Alright, once you put all the screws back in, you're going to put this plastic piece back over. Next, you're going to get your back plate. You're going to reattach the cable for your fingerprint reader. Alright, once you got your cable back in, you're going to put your rubber cover back over. Once you got that back in place, you're going to reattach your back cover over. And then you're most likely going to need to apply some new adhesive all around. As far as repairability goes on this phone, I honestly don't think it's an easy phone to repair. It has a lot of adhesive throughout the phone, on multiple layers even, so once you pry all that stuff off, you're going to have to reapply new adhesive throughout the phone. But aside from that, let's power on the phone. And you're done.